next week we're either going to be talking about an end to the war in Ukraine, like really talking about it, or we'll be looking at World War III. One of the two.
Pulling the Thread podcast, episode 10. I can't even hear me. What the fuck is going on here?
I bet everybody else
Is this
can.
even the same soundboard?
Same everything.
Did our soundboard get stolen again?
It didn't. You
just switched?
You're not accustomed to it.
Why?
Haven't been in here in a while.
How come when you pay more for a soundboard and the fucking thing gets smaller? I want more lights and buzzers and shit.
They don't want that.
I want that. Can you? What's the thing you used to see the rappers in when they're rapping and they had all the fucking boards and shit?
Like a DJ, like a booth?
Yeah.
You want like a mixer?
Can you do? Yeah. Can I have that? They got to be giving them away nowadays, right?
I'm sure they're free now.
Everybody just does SoundCloud, so
yeah, it's just on a MacBook.
I want the lights to be so bright on the soundboard that you have to use even brighter lights in the background to wash out the soundboard.
That's how my sewing area. It's 15 degrees warmer where I sew at.
So last week we were sewing. I had a 600-watt globe light above him at almost maximum power. So bright that my eyes were flickering, and Cody was even complaining. And then on the other side, I have two 60-watt with huge softboxes. And then he has two funny little octopus arms, and then the overheads are on too, of the entire garage. And he's going, it's not fucking enough light. And he's like smacking everything, and I'm like,
you know what I need?
Can you turn it up a little bit?
Don't they have glasses that have two
oh,
like for
man, that'd be great, yeah.
Tim Riley has those surgical glasses.
That's what you need.
That is what I need.
Or
the new camera glasses that
only $800, and you can't replace the batteries.
We get him a pair of birth control glasses and just tape two Surefires to the side of it.
Or some mini mags.
Two Surefires to the side of it. That might be enough light, maybe.
So what's going on? What are you aware of in the world?
I mean, Europe is a soup sandwich.
Yeah,
the Democrat Party is filled with losers. That's about it.
Did you see the young man that they honored last night? He had had 13 brain surgeries, young kid, when he was very young. They had Lincoln Riley's family up there, and then they had this young man up there, and I think he's 13 now. And he said, I was taking a bath, and I went to the slow place. He still has some. He speaks very well, but he's like, every time I've had a surgery, my personality has changed. And this kid's dream is to be a police officer. So he's like an honorary police officer with like 90 different agencies. And Trump made him an honorary Secret Service agent last night.
Nice. I hope they gave him a badge.
They did. And the dude that he was standing there with, Trump's now head of Secret Service, was the Secret Service agent that was on stage with him when he went down and took a knee down there. That's the dude that was covering Trump's body, and he was there with that kid. But not a single Democrat fucking applauded, gave any fucking appreciation, nothing for any of those people.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is the Democratic Party has nothing. They have nothing. They are like... If you're a liberal Democrat that understands what America actually is, and you want to do good for the country, you really have to leave the Democratic Party because they don't have anything. They don't have anything.
Trump had said, we funded Ukraine for the last 6 years, and they all applauded. And he's like, I bet you'd like another 6 years, wouldn't you? And he goes, yeah, Pocahontas right there. She wants another 6 years.
Yeah, they don't. The reality is when you think about the Democrats, they're the part. They were supposed to be the party of peace, and they are the fucking war hawks.
Are they really, or is it just simply that they are fucking just doing anything that is against Trump?
No, well, no, because you have to understand that the Ukrainian war. Let's go back. Let's forget about Ukraine. The Democrats wholeheartedly were in Afghanistan, Iraq. The Democrats, again, under Obama, they destroyed the country of Libya that now you can go buy slaves in because we fucked that country up because they had no plan for it. They are the war hawks. They want war because war is the easiest way to create graft.
As do many of the Republicans as well.
Oh, I mean,
especially rhinos.
There's fucking Republicans in there that are very that are very war hawks too. And that's, I would say that's the problem with the president is when you talk about the deep state wants war because war is what, I could probably make an argument right now that the Democrats are right. The Democrats are right in wanting to continue the war in Ukraine.
You feel that? You believe that?
Well, I could make the argument because what most people don't understand is the reason why we have survived the last 8 years under Democratic control is because of the large influx of money that's been going into the defense department or into Raytheon and all those corporations, General Dynamics, to fight this war in Ukraine. The reality is what most people don't understand is...
You mean that's kept our economy alive?
It's kept our economy afloat, meaning inflation is actually at an all-time high. But because of the huge influx of money that, again, you could just say this is just laundered money, the billions of dollars that's gone to Ukraine and the less billions that have come back to the United States to purchase equipment is what's keeping the economy afloat.
Did you see the post that Kash Patel put up last night? Had 15 congressmen such on there and showing the money that came from Ukraine into their bank accounts back to them.
Oh yeah, it is a heavy laundering scheme, no doubt about it. Like the reality is, Ukraine has been and still is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Before the war started, everyone knew how corrupt Ukraine was. Okay. Now, when you have a guy sitting there going, well, I don't know where $100 billion is. You do. It's corruption. Like it is corruption.
Did you see
pure and simple?
There's an Instagram page. She's got a YouTube channel too. She's called Really Graceful. Has a very easy, soft voice to listen to. She does all this conspiracy theory and history stuff. Her channel's amazing. I sent you a link, I think, last night. I don't know if you saw it. It was a 30-minute video on the history of Ukraine and Zelensky, and it's just fucking crazy, all the footage of him just being silly, like literally playing a homosexual.
He was a comedian before he was president.
Well,
he was a comedian before the
Do you know they had him in a movie?
United States conducted a coup.
They had him in a movie. He was the head actor in a movie playing the president of Ukraine 4 years before he was installed as the president of Ukraine.
Yeah. I mean, the reality of when you conduct a coup, a military operations, which is what we did in Ukraine, the Color Revolution was a coup that was supported by the CIA and funded by the United States of America. When you do that, you put in the person that you can manipulate. They're not going to be allowed to elect somebody that is not going to toe the party line. That is the reason why we conducted the coup, because the individual who was elected wasn't towing the fucking party line. It's no different than like when we think about Saddam Hussein, right?
So I remember, good morning, Mr. Gaddafi. This is your wake up call. Because you had said Libya earlier, right? And that was a whole debacle, and it's fucking wrecked right now more than it's ever been, like biblical time slave trade. But even I remember in the 4th or 5th grade watching Ronald Reagan. Good morning, Mr. Gaddafi. This is your wake up call. And those fucking Tomcats or whatever we sent in there that bombed the shit out of himself out of that. But that was, under Obama, under, Republican and Democrat.
Well, when we do that, the interesting thing about that is after the end of World War II, there was a certain level of the dictator is the dictator that you should keep, right? We were never looking for regime changes anywhere in the world. All we would do is manipulate the regime. So meaning...
Well, Rothschilds would.
All we would do is manipulate them. Well, because you have to understand that. You have to understand from a perspective of the end of World War... When you look at World War II, at the end of World War II, Japan, all of Europe is fucking trashed. It is trashed.
That's how Ukraine is right now.
It has to be rebuilt. And the only way you can rebuild it and it turn into some semblance of a decent world is through stabilization. You have to stabilize everything. And that's what the United States did. We put our Pacific Fleet, our Atlantic Fleet everywhere in the world. We put U.S. troops everywhere in the world, not for colonialism, for stabilization. What we did is we stabilized the world. Now, sometimes when you stabilize the world, you have to stabilize a dictator, meaning Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi, because those individuals are stabilizing that part of the world, right? If Saddam Hussein is in the Middle East and he is cracking the whip, I don't have to worry about maintaining stability in that country because he's doing it through force. Same thing with Libya. And that's what we did. We went around the world and stabilized it to the point where the Western world could rebuild and become the countries they are today. You know, France can rattle their sabers all they want. Britain can rattle all their sabers all they want. The only reason why they still exist as countries is because the United States was willing to do all that for everybody else by taking nothing in return. Now, the problem with that is we have grown to a point where the Europeans have viewed our ability to maintain stability around the world as something that we owe them. And we don't owe them shit. We don't owe them a fucking thing.
What do we owe Canada?
We don't owe Canada anything either.
Right.
Canada
we support them $200 billion a year.
Canada has lived under the umbrella of our protection the entire time. We don't owe Canada shit.
Let's go back to Ukraine. We'll talk about Canada in a minute. So back to Ukraine. Ukraine's completely disheveled. I mean, literally rubble. There's not even a fucking cinder block in some of those towns there. So we say, so Zelensky comes to the White House, gets dressed down. I think that was probably planned, if not even scripted, maybe. And he's supposed to sign this mineral deal, which he says he'll sign in Munich. Goes back to Munich and completely tries to circumvent the United States. France says they're putting troops in fucking Ukraine. Germany says they're putting troops in Ukraine. And he's not doing the mineral deal. I see Putin. Last night I saw this. Putin reached out to Trump and said, we'll sell you minerals. We'll sell you 100 times more minerals than Ukraine has. Let's do a deal. Where that went, or if it, you don't even know if this shit's real anymore at this point, but it did seem, I think it was Tatum that put it out, pretty, respectable channel. Could you imagine if we just circumvented Ukraine and said, fuck you, and we did a deal with Russia, and now all of a sudden we are friendly with Russia? what the, like I heard 2 days ago, Trump said, we're pulling out of NATO. We'll just leave NATO. We're not going to do your Article 5 shit because France goes over there and gets fucking whacked. Yeah. And now all of a sudden we're beholden to be in this war. He's like, we'll just leave NATO.
Let's look at this Zelensky fiasco. Okay.
He's got 2 more weeks.
What people don't understand is when Zelensky left to come to the United States, the only reason why he was coming to the United States was to sign the mineral deal. Rubio had already etched that in stone. That we're gonna give you fucking shit.
Yeah, they were announcing it publicly.
You're gonna give us now. Again, you can look at it any way you want. No European nation, all the NATO countries that are supporting Ukraine are supporting Ukraine with mineral deals. The British signed a fucking mineral deal before Trump was even president.
They were paying everybody back except the United States.
The United States was the only one taking it in the shorts because we had weak leadership. When Zelensky got here, you know why he was late meeting the president?
Because he had met with all the fucking...
He met with Democratic leadership, and the Democratic leadership told him not to accept the mineral deal. Do
we know who was present for that meeting?
There's
who
actually
said that. Why are they not fucking up on charges?
We could find out who it is. We could probably find out who it is because there's actually video of the meeting. The reason why they're not on charges is because what they did was not illegal. wasn't illegal. It wasn't treason. Delegates.
Boy, you would think they'd be fucking dancing on thin ice right now.
They are
dancing,
but
very fucking careful.
The reality is they are dancing on thin ice.
them?
They have no base. The Democratic Party is fucked.
Yeah, you see AOC's shit when fucking he said, hey, I'm going to have Bondi look into this, and Bondi fucking put charges. There's an investigation.
So
whether that goes anywhere, I mean,
the Democrats are the ones that told him to be confrontational in the White House. He was confrontational in the White House. But
if they'd have just taken him into custody right there, this shit would all be over. Everybody in Ukraine would be pleased. Russia would be pleased.
You can't. You can't,
because they won't come a second time if you do.
You can't.
But if you had fucking taken him into custody,
we're still. Again, understand, John. We're still operating. We're still operating under the auspice of civilized society. It's kind of like, I don't know if you remember when certain Democrats were calling for the assassination of Putin. That became a really big deal because nation states, theoretically, nation states aren't allowed to plot the assassination of a elected world leader.
Right. Only your intelligence agencies are allowed to do that.
Yeah, and even they got in trouble for it when they were doing it.
With a cutout.
So, what ended up happening though is because Zelensky is not a real. Because he's not a real player, he's an actor, right? When he puts the uniform on and he goes out, he's acting. When he's running around the world stage and asking everybody for money, he's acting. He's not a real leader. He doesn't understand the nuances of everything that's going on in the world. So when France, we're France, we're gonna send troops, or Britain's like, we're gonna send troops. He thinks in his head that that's enough, that that's what he needs. Now, what nobody understands, including Zelensky, is even the Brits with their, we're going to put troops and planes and we're going to do all this stuff, fuck you, America, down here in the fine print that Zelensky's not reading, and that the spectacle of what the leaderships in Europe are doing, in the fine print down here, it always says the same thing. As long as we have guarantees from America. As long as we have guarantees from America. The British have 100 total armed forces, 175,000 troops. Total. We have more in our fucking National Guard. Are they going to commit their entire military to a total losing perspective? Of course they're not. There is no fucking way. And when the British are talking about sending troops and sending planes, what they are actually talking about is what Trump has already said. We will guarantee a peace deal and we will use NATO troops to monitor that line to keep the peace. The British aren't offering Ukraine fucking anything that isn't already part of the deal. They're not. It's this fucking big European joke. The reality is NATO as a whole. So if you take a look at you take a look at NATO as a whole. They don't spend enough money on their national defense. They don't have the capability. They don't have the capability or infrastructure to ramp up national defense. So NATO as a whole, if every single country within NATO got together and decided they were going to fight the Russians, we would still have to commit American forces in order to achieve that victory. NATO as a whole cannot do it. And when you look at what's going on right now, it's not NATO as a whole. It's a couple of countries. And what most people don't understand is NATO has already fucking used up all their ammo. All the ammo that they had been building for years and years and years to fight the Russians in the first place, or the Soviet Union. NATO's already used it.
So why are they doing this?
Because they are.
Is this a Davos thing?
No,
pull the puppet strings to be against the United States.
It's not a Davos thing. It's a woke. It's a woke revolution that has happened over the past 10 years, not just in the United States, heavily in Europe. This woke revolution that has happened in these countries, These people are now backed up against a wall. They can't go, the Prime Minister of Britain, because of the way they have been doing their politics, they cannot now go, well, what's the most important thing? Peace in Europe. Let's have the Americans, who have really the most influence and the only ones that can bring a real bat to the fucking table. Let's have the Americans create a peace deal with with Russia and end this fucking war. They can't do it because it's Donald Trump. So they have to keep wagging they have to keep towing that fucking political line, that religious political wokeism, and be like, fuck Donald Trump, even though we're going to do whatever it is that Donald Trump is telling you to do, because Donald Trump is only trying to stop a war.
So what do you think is going to happen?
Oh, well, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but what did Donald Trump do?
Put all the trannies out of the military?
Well, I mean, again, they're non-deployable, so why do we have them in there in the first place? What did Donald Trump do? He immediately came out the next day and he froze all fucking military aid to Ukraine. Now, if France and Britain and any other of those fucking bumbling NATO countries really, really, really were serious about what they're telling their constituents, then it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered if America was like, yeah, we're just not going to send you any more shit. But you know who is now coming to the table and regretting the confrontation that he had with Donald Trump? You know who is now coming to the table and actually talking about ending the war in Ukraine? Zelensky. Why? Because he went back to Europe.
Yeah, I heard they were trying to oust him.
Well, he went back to Europe, and the Europeans were like, behind closed doors, the Europeans were like, hey, we can't go to war with Russia. We can't do it. If America is not on board, we can't do it. So Zelensky had to come back and be like, hey, I'm really sorry about what happened. Maybe I'll get a suit and a tie. Let's figure out how we can end this war. He knows he has to end the war now because the money train is over.
What happens if we pull our people home, go America first, and just be isolationist for a year? What do you see happening? Walmart collapses, everything becomes more expensive. Yes, it's definitely painful, but I think it would be better for the United States in the long run. Pay the bills off, build the fucking... And let the world see what happens when the United States isn't there.
For the world, okay? The problem is people have been following this globalist agenda that has nothing to do with democracy. It has nothing to do with the Republic of America. They've been following a globalist agenda that says nothing matters as long as we are still in power, right? That's the big thing that they're afraid of. It's why the Germans, the current German parliament is more like their Nazi counterparts than they are anything else, because they won't allow any other parties. That's no different than what Adolf Hitler did. And they're doing it right now in the name of, we don't want to end up like World War II Germany, but you're doing it already. You're doing it anyways. So you already are. Us becoming isolationists works short term. So the United States could pull back. The United States could pull back from, meaning if, we just, fuck it, we're going to bring everybody home, right? It would work short term. But we are the guarantors of democracy in the world. I promise you, if the United States becomes isolationist, the world will burn. War will erupt in Europe like we haven't seen since World War II. The Chinese will go after every fucking thing they can get their fucking hands on. It will be a nightmare. And when you look at Europe and everybody's like, ooh, Russia's the evil boogeyman. There are other people in Europe that would love the opportunity to attempt to increase their borders, not just Russia. The fucking players would become instant enemies, and there would be serious problems because nobody else has the capability to project force like we do. Nobody else. And so it would be a grab bag, and the world would be on fire, and then you know what would happen? We would have to fucking fix it again.